You wake up every morning knowing you're capable of more. You see others achieving what you dream of, and deep down, you whisper to yourself that you could do it too. But here's the truth you rarely speak aloud. You've grown comfortable making excuses, comfortable blaming circumstances, comfortable being almost great but never truly exceptional. I am Solomon, and 3,000 years ago, I discovered something that separates the winners from the wishers. Something that transforms ordinary people into legends. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even intelligence. It's the complete rewiring of how you think about failure, about sacrifice, and about the price of greatness. Today, you're going to discover the exact mindset that built empires and created champions. Not the soft motivation that makes you feel good for 5 minutes, but the hard truths that will make you uncomfortable enough to finally change. Because here's what I learned ruling kingdoms and accumulating wisdom. There are only 2 types of people in this world. Those who make excuses and those who make history. Those who hide from their potential and those who become obsessed with unleashing it. The question is simple. Which one will you choose to be when this video ends? This isn't about changing what you do. This is about becoming who you were meant to be. This is about joining the council of champions who refuse to settle for anything less than their absolute best. If you're ready to stop being almost great and start being unstoppable, then stay with me for the next few minutes. And if this message stirs something deep inside you, something that's been sleeping too long, then subscribe now. Because what I'm about to share with you will either transform your life or reveal that you're not ready for the path of true winners. The choice is yours. Number 1, winner's mentality and recruitment. You sit in meetings surrounded by people who nod politely at mediocrity. You watch colleagues celebrate participation trophies while your soul screams for something greater. Deep inside, you know you're settling for a life of comfortable second place, and it's slowly killing the champion within you. I am Solomon, and I learned this truth through pain. There are only 2 types of people in this world. Those who compete to win and those who compete to belong. The tragedy is that most people spend their entire lives convincing themselves that showing up is enough. Picture a lion who chooses to hunt with house cats. No matter how hard those cats try, their instincts will never match the lion's hunger for the kill. The lion will either starve trying to teach them to hunt, or it will lower itself to catching mice when it was born to bring down gazelles. When I built my kingdom, I faced a choice that would define everything. I could surround myself with pleasant advisors who would agree with my every decision, or I could seek out those rare souls who burned with the same relentless hunger for greatness. I chose to ask one question to every person who wanted to join my circle. Do you want to win above all else, or do you just want to be part of something? The answers revealed everything. Those who wanted to belong spoke of balance, of reasonable expectations, of the importance of trying their best. But those who wanted to win spoke differently. Their eyes lit up when they talked about victory. They didn't ask about working hours or vacation days. They asked about the mountain we were climbing and whether I believed it was possible to reach the summit. Here's what changed everything for me. I stopped asking whether I could reach the level of the great kings before me. Instead, I started asking how I would find out. That simple shift in language rewired my entire approach to life. When you say, "I don't know if I can," you're already preparing for failure. When you say, "I don't know, but I will find out," you're preparing for discovery. This is not about arrogance. This is about refusing to accept a life of perpetual second place. When you truly understand that your time on this earth is limited, settling for anything less than your absolute best becomes a form of slow suicide. The practical truth is this. Examine the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they competing to win or competing to belong? Are they pushing you toward greatness, or are they comfortable with your current limitations? Your future is being shaped by these relationships, whether you realize it or not. Therefore, I say to you, if you want to live like a champion, You must be willing to hunt alone until you find your pride. For the man who accepts second place has already decided that first place was never truly his to claim. Number 2, work ethic and dedication. You tell yourself you're working hard, but every night when you close your eyes, you know the truth. You gave 70% when you had 80% to give. You chose comfort over growth, rest over progress, and now you lie awake wondering why your dreams feel further away than ever. I am Solomon, and I discovered that excellence is not an event but a way of breathing. The wise understand that greatness is not built in moments of inspiration, but in the countless hours when no one is watching, when motivation has fled, and only discipline remains. Imagine a river carving through stone. Each drop of water seems insignificant, powerless against the mountain's solid face. Yet day after day, year after year, that gentle persistence creates canyons that dwarf the mightiest structures man can build. This is the power of daily dedication, applied to a singular purpose. In my pursuit of wisdom, I reached a point where I stopped seeing the world as a collection of random experiences. Every conversation became a classroom. Every book became a mentor. Every failure became curriculum for my growth. When you possess absolute clarity about your destination, the universe becomes your library, and every moment becomes a chance to learn something that moves you closer to your goal. The transformation happened when I realized that my daily routine was not something I had to endure to reach my dreams. My daily routine was the dream itself. The reading, the studying, the constant questioning, the relentless pursuit of understanding. This was not the price I paid for wisdom. This was wisdom itself, manifesting in real time. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop thinking of discipline as the sacrifice you make for future rewards. Start seeing discipline as the identity you're building right now. You're not just working toward becoming great. You're becoming great through the work itself. Most people fail because they treat excellence like a destination they'll arrive at someday. They're waiting for the moment when hard work will no longer be necessary. But the wise understand that excellence is a way of being, not a place you reach. The practical reality is this: your current level of daily discipline is creating your future reality. If you're not willing to change your daily actions, stop expecting different yearly results. The man who reads for 30 minutes each day will not recognize himself in 10 years. The man who exercises consistently will inhabit a different body and mind. The man who practices his craft daily will develop skills that seem supernatural to others. Therefore, I declare to you, let your days become your destiny. For the man who masters his mornings will eventually master his life, but the man who allows his days to drift will find that his years have drifted also. Number 3, identifying personal limitations. You pretend your limitations don't exist because acknowledging them feels like admitting defeat. You compare yourself to others and feel inadequate, never realizing that your greatest weaknesses, when honestly faced, become the foundation for your most creative strengths. I am Solomon, and I learned this humbling truth. The wise man is not the one born with the most gifts, but the one who transforms his constraints into advantages. Denial of your limitations is the fastest path to mediocrity, but honest assessment of them is the gateway to genius. Picture a master craftsman handed inferior materials. He does not curse his circumstances or pretend the wood is stronger than it is. Instead, he studies its grain, understands its weaknesses, and creates something beautiful by working with its nature rather than against it. His masterpiece emerges not despite the limitations, but because of how skillfully he navigated them. When I began building my kingdom, I was forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. I was not the strongest warrior, nor the most charismatic speaker, nor the most naturally gifted leader among my peers. My first instinct was to hide these inadequacies and hope no one would notice. But this approach led only to constant anxiety and diminishing returns. The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to be someone else and started becoming the best version of who I actually was. I realized that my lack of natural charisma forced me to become a better listener. My physical limitations made me more strategic. My need to work harder than others gave me deeper understanding of the principles that govern success. Here's the transformation that everything hinges on. Your limitations are not obstacles to overcome, but puzzles to solve. When you can't rely on raw talent, you develop systems. When you can't dominate through strength, you learn to influence through wisdom. When you can't be the fastest, you learn to be the smartest about the path you choose. This is not about accepting mediocrity. This is about finding the unique form of excellence that only you can achieve. Every great achievement in history came from someone who learned to transcend their apparent limitations through creative problem solving and relentless adaptation. The practical approach is this: make an honest inventory of your current limitations. Instead of being discouraged by them, get curious about them. Ask yourself how you can design your approach to minimize their impact while maximizing your natural strengths. The most successful people are rarely the most talented, but they're always the most self-aware. Therefore, I say to you, embrace your constraints as the boundaries within which your genius will emerge. For the man who knows his limitations can transcend them, but the man who pretends they don't exist will be forever trapped by them. Number 4, the mental switch. You drift through your most important moments in a fog of distraction. Your phone buzzes, your mind wanders, and you show up to the biggest opportunities of your life only half present. Then you wonder why your results don't match your potential. I am Solomon, and I discovered that between the ordinary man and the extraordinary man lies a single skill: the ability to transform their mental state at will. The great ones don't just show up to important moments. They arrive completely. Envision a gladiator entering the arena. The moment he crosses that threshold, everything changes. His breathing deepens. His focus sharpens. The crowd's noise becomes distant. His entire being aligns with a single purpose: victory or death. There is no room for yesterday's worries or tomorrow's fears. There is only this moment, this opponent, this choice. In my reign, I observed that my most crucial decisions were made not when I felt naturally inspired, but when I could summon complete focus despite feeling tired, distracted, or uncertain. I developed what I came to think of as the royal switch, a mental mechanism that could instantly separate Solomon the man from Solomon the king. The transformation occurred when I realized that peak performance is not about feeling ready. It's about becoming ready regardless of how you feel. The switch doesn't wait for perfect circumstances. The switch creates perfect focus within imperfect circumstances. Here's what changes everything. You already possess this ability, but you've never trained it systematically. Think of the last time you faced a true emergency. Notice how instantly your mind cleared, how completely present you became, how efficiently you moved. That clarity didn't come from external circumstances. It came from an internal switch that activated automatically. Now imagine if you could activate that same level of focus voluntarily. Imagine walking into every important conversation, every challenging task, every crucial moment with that same knife-sharp presence. This is not a fantasy. This is a trainable skill. The practical method is this: create a ritual that signals to your mind that it's time for complete engagement. It might be 3 deep breaths, a specific phrase you repeat, or a physical gesture that you've conditioned to trigger focus. Practice this ritual daily in low-stakes situations until it becomes automatic. The warrior understands that the battle is won or lost before the first sword is drawn. Victory belongs to the one who arrives fully present while their opponent arrives fragmented. Therefore, I declare to you, master the switch, and you master the moment. For the man who can summon his full presence at will can achieve what others consider impossible, but the man who remains forever scattered will scatter his opportunities as well. Number 5. Overcoming criticism and failure. You lie awake replaying your mistakes, tormented by what others might think, paralyzed by the fear of failing again. You've made failure about your worth instead of about your education, and now you're trapped in a prison built from your own shame. I am Solomon, and I learned this liberating truth. Failure is not the opposite of success, but its most honest teacher. The wise man does not avoid failure but learns to fail forward, extracting wisdom from each setback while leaving the shame behind. Consider a master blacksmith forging a sword. When the metal cracks under his hammer, he does not weep over the wasted material or question his calling. He examines the fracture, adjusts his temperature, changes his technique, and begins again. Each failed blade teaches him something the successful ones cannot. His mastery emerges not from avoiding mistakes, but from transforming mistakes into knowledge. Early in my reign, I made a decision that resulted in significant loss for my kingdom. The criticism came swift and harsh. My advisors questioned my judgment. My enemies mocked my inexperience. For weeks I carried this failure like a heavy stone, replaying every moment, consumed by shame and self-doubt. The breakthrough came when I realized I was making the failure about me instead of about the lesson. I was so focused on protecting my ego that I was missing the valuable data the experience provided. When I shifted from "I am a failure" to "this approach failed," everything changed. I could analyze what went wrong without destroying my confidence. I could adjust my strategy without abandoning my vision. Here's the mindset shift that transforms everything. Get over yourself. Your failures are not dramatic statements about your character. They're simply information about what doesn't work. When you remove your ego from the equation, failure becomes fascinating rather than devastating. The most successful people you know have failed more times than the unsuccessful people have even tried. The difference is not in their failure rate, but in their recovery rate. They've learned to bounce back faster because they've learned to extract the lesson without absorbing the shame. The practical approach is this. After every setback, ask yourself 3 questions. What specifically went wrong? What can I learn from this? What will I do differently next time? Notice that none of these questions require you to judge your worth as a person. They only require you to judge the effectiveness of your approach. Understand that your critics are often revealing more about their own limitations than about yours. The person who has never attempted anything significant will always find fault with those who dare to try and fail. Their criticism says nothing about your potential and everything about their fear. Therefore, I say to you, let failure be your teacher, not your judge. For the man who learns from his mistakes becomes wise, but the man who hides from them remains forever foolish. Number 6, the mountain of the greats. You try to figure everything out on your own, proud of your independence, but ignorant of the wisdom that surrounds you. You reinvent solutions that have already been perfected by others, wasting precious years learning lessons that could have been taught in hours. I am Solomon, and I discovered that true wisdom begins with recognizing how much you don't know and seeking out those who have already climbed the mountains you're approaching. The wise man stands on the shoulders of giants not out of weakness, but out of intelligence. Picture a young eagle learning to soar. It does not invent flight through trial and error. It watches the master flyers, observes their techniques, and allows their knowledge to accelerate its own development. The eagle that tries to learn everything alone may eventually fly, but it will never reach the heights achieved by those who learned from the best. In building my empire, I reached a point where my own experience was insufficient for the challenges I faced. I could continue stumbling forward, learning everything the hard way, or I could seek out the kings and leaders who had already conquered similar territories. Pride whispered that I should figure it out myself. Wisdom demanded that I find the greatest minds of my time and absorb their hard-won knowledge. The conversations that followed changed everything. These were not casual chats, but intensive sessions with individuals who had achieved at the highest levels. I discovered that greatness has common patterns: obsession with details, relentless commitment to improvement, a willingness to sacrifice comfort for progress, a particular way of thinking about problems and solutions. Here's what I learned that transformed my approach. Excellence is not mysterious. It has been studied, analyzed, and perfected by others. The strategies that create breakthrough results are known quantities. The only question is whether you're humble enough to learn them and disciplined enough to apply them. The great ones understand something that the average person misses. Success leaves clues. Every field has its masters, and every master has patterns of thinking and behaving that can be observed, studied, and adapted to your situation. The practical step is this: identify the 3 most successful people in your field and study everything about how they think and operate. Read their books, watch their interviews, analyze their decisions. Look for the principles beneath their tactics. Most importantly, if possible, find a way to learn directly from them. Understand that seeking mentorship is not admitting weakness, but demonstrating intelligence. The person who is too proud to learn from others will spend their life solving problems that have already been solved. The greatest leaders throughout history have been students first. They understood that their success would come not from their individual brilliance, but from their ability to combine the wisdom of those who came before them with their own unique circumstances and vision. Therefore, I declare to you, climb the mountain of the greats and breathe the rarefied air of their wisdom. For the man who learns only from his own experience will have a short and limited education, but the man who learns from the experience of giants will see further than he ever imagined possible. Number 7. Personal sacrifices and relationships. You want everything. You want to achieve greatness and maintain all your comfortable relationships. You want to climb mountains and still have time for every social gathering. You want to build an empire while keeping everyone around you completely satisfied with your choices. But deep down, you know this is impossible, and the internal conflict is tearing you apart. I am Solomon, and I learned this painful truth. Every great achievement demands a sacrifice that most people are unwilling to make. The wise understand that you cannot serve 2 masters, and excellence is the most demanding master of all. Imagine a sculptor creating his masterpiece. Every stroke of his chisel removes something from the original stone. He cannot create David while preserving every particle of marble. Each decision to carve away one possibility creates space for another to emerge. The final statue is beautiful not because nothing was lost, but because the right things were sacrificed for the greater vision. As my dedication to building the kingdom intensified, the casualties became undeniable. Friendships that had sustained me through my youth began to fade. Family gatherings were missed. Social invitations were declined. The easy laughter and casual conversations that had once filled my days disappeared, replaced by strategic meetings and solitary study. The pain was real. Watching relationships drift away while I pursued my vision created a loneliness that success couldn't immediately heal. But I discovered something profound in that isolation. Those who truly loved me understood the magnitude of what I was building and supported it even when it meant seeing me less. Those who didn't understand revealed that their love was conditional on my availability rather than rooted in genuine care for my highest good. Here's the hard truth that changes everything. You cannot have an extraordinary life with ordinary priorities. The path to greatness requires saying no to good things so you can say yes to great things. Every hour you spend maintaining relationships that don't support your growth is an hour stolen from the relationships that do. This is not about becoming selfish or heartless. This is about understanding that your highest contribution to the world and to the people you love requires you to become the best version of yourself possible. Sometimes that means disappointing people in the short term to serve them better in the long term. The practical reality is this: audit your relationships ruthlessly. Who in your life celebrates your growth? Who supports your sacrifices even when they're inconvenient? Who believes in your vision even when they can't fully understand it? These are your true allies. Invest more deeply in these relationships while allowing others to naturally fade. Understand that the right people will respect your dedication even when it means less time together. They will celebrate your victories and support you through your struggles. The wrong people will guilt you for your commitment and try to pull you back toward mediocrity. The greatest gift you can give to those you love is the example of a life fully lived in pursuit of meaningful purpose. Your children, your future partner, your community will benefit more from witnessing your excellence than from having your constant availability. Therefore, I say to you, choose your sacrifices consciously rather than having them chosen for you by circumstance. For the man who gives up small things gains the capacity to achieve great things, but the man who refuses to sacrifice anything will sacrifice everything to mediocrity. Number 8, commitment to performance. You make excuses. When you're tired, you dial it back. When circumstances aren't perfect, you give yourself permission to deliver less than your best. When challenges seem too difficult, you find reasons to avoid them entirely. But secretly, you know that each excuse is eroding the respect you have for yourself. I am Solomon, and I learned this uncompromising truth. Your character is not measured by what you do when you feel inspired, but by what you do when everything inside you wants to quit. The wise understand that consistency under pressure separates the great from the merely good. Picture a lighthouse standing against a violent storm. The waves crash higher, the winds blow stronger, but the light continues to shine. Ships in distress depend not on its performance when the seas are calm, but on its reliability when darkness and chaos threaten to destroy everything. This is the essence of true commitment. There came a day when I faced the ultimate test of my dedication. A crucial battle awaited, but my body was racked with pain from an injury that made every movement agony. Every rational voice in my head suggested postponing the confrontation. My advisors offered reasonable excuses. The easy path lay clearly before me. But in that moment of decision, I realized that this was not really about one battle. This was about who I was going to be when everything was on the line. This was about whether my commitment was conditional on my comfort or absolute regardless of circumstances. The people who had placed their trust in me deserved to see someone who would show up regardless of personal cost. Here's the transformation that defines true leaders. You stop asking whether you feel like showing up and start showing up because that's who you are. Your commitment becomes your identity rather than your mood. Your promises become sacred contracts with yourself rather than flexible suggestions. The crowd doesn't pay to see your excuses. They pay to see your excellence. The people who depend on you don't care about your internal struggles. They care about your external performance. This is not unfair. This is the responsibility that comes with choosing to be exceptional. Most people perform well when they feel good and make excuses when they don't. But the great ones understand that their reputation is built on the days when performing well required heroic effort. Those are the moments that define careers and create legends. The practical application is this: identify your non-negotiables. What are the standards you will maintain regardless of how you feel or what obstacles you face? Write them down. Commit to them publicly. Then honor them, especially when honoring them is difficult. Understand that every time you follow through when you don't feel like it, you're making a deposit in the account of your own self-respect. Every time you make an excuse, you're making a withdrawal. Your confidence is directly tied to your ability to trust yourself, to do what you say you'll do. The people around you are always watching, even when you think they're not. They're forming opinions about your character based on your consistency under pressure. They're deciding whether you're someone they can count on when things get difficult. Therefore, I declare to you, let your commitment be your signature in this world. For the man who shows up regardless of circumstances earns the right to call himself reliable. But the man who shows up only when it's convenient will find that opportunities stop showing up for him. Number 9, business decision-making process. You chase opportunities you don't understand because they promise quick profits. You invest in trends without comprehending the fundamentals. You make business decisions based on emotions and hope rather than analysis and wisdom. Then you wonder why your ventures fail, while others seem to effortlessly build lasting wealth. I am Solomon, and I discovered that true prosperity comes not from finding the perfect opportunity, but from developing the perfect process for evaluating opportunities. The wise understand that what they don't invest in is often more important than what they do invest in. Consider a master navigator charting a course across dangerous waters. He does not simply point his ship toward the destination and hope for the best. He studies the currents, examines the weather patterns, understands the capabilities of his vessel, and plots a route that accounts for known hazards. His success comes not from courage, but from comprehensive preparation. Early in my reign, I was presented with countless opportunities that promised great returns. Trading ventures in distant lands, innovative technologies, partnerships with ambitious merchants. The temptation was to say yes to everything that sounded profitable, but I had learned to ask harder questions. The first question became my foundation. Do I truly understand how this business creates value? If I couldn't explain the fundamental mechanics of how money flows through the operation, I knew I was gambling rather than investing. Understanding meant knowing the customers, the competition, the costs, and the cycles that would affect profitability. The second question protected me from countless mistakes. How difficult would it be for competitors to duplicate this success? If the barrier to entry was low, I knew that early profits would quickly disappear as others flooded the market. I looked for businesses that required rare skills, significant capital, or unique advantages that couldn't be easily replicated. The third question revealed character. Who are the leaders, and do they possess the obsessive dedication that excellence demands? A great business idea with mediocre leadership will fail. A mediocre business idea with exceptional leadership can thrive. I learned to invest in people as much as in concepts. Here's the wisdom that transformed my approach. Every business decision is really a decision about risk versus reward, but most people only calculate the potential reward. They fall in love with the upside while ignoring the downside. True wealth is built by those who understand both sides of the equation. The practical framework is this. Before making any significant business commitment, answer these questions honestly. First, do I understand exactly how this business makes money? Second, what could cause this business to fail, and how likely are those scenarios? Third, do the leaders have the competence and character necessary for long-term success? Fourth, can this business adapt and grow, or is it dependent on current conditions remaining unchanged? Most business failures come from predictable causes that were visible from the beginning, but ignored in the excitement of potential profits. The wise investor is skeptical of opportunities that seem too good to be true because they usually are. Understand that saying no to the wrong opportunities is what creates space for the right opportunities. Your time, energy, and capital are finite resources. Squandering them on ventures you don't understand guarantees that you'll miss the ventures you could have mastered. Therefore, I say to you, let understanding be your guide and patience be your guardian. For the man who invests only in what he comprehends will sleep peacefully while his wealth grows, but the man who chases every shining opportunity will find that most of them were merely fool's gold. Number 10, creative leadership and post-career. You've achieved some success, but now you're wondering what comes next. The goals that once motivated you feel smaller. The challenges that once excited you now seem routine. You're searching for meaning beyond personal achievement, but you're not sure how to channel your experience into something that truly matters. I am Solomon, and I learned this profound truth. The highest form of leadership is not commanding others to follow your vision, but inspiring them to exceed their own limitations. The wise leader understands that legacy is not built by what you accomplish alone, but by what you make possible for others. Imagine a master gardener who has spent decades perfecting his craft. He could continue growing beautiful gardens for his own satisfaction, but his greatest impact comes from teaching others to create beauty that will outlast his own lifetime. His knowledge, multiplied through others, becomes more powerful than his individual efforts ever could. After establishing my kingdom and achieving personal success, I faced an unexpected emptiness. The goals that had driven me for years had been accomplished, but the sense of purpose I expected to feel was missing. I realized that personal achievement, no matter how great, can never fully satisfy the human need for meaning. The transformation came when I shifted from asking what I could accomplish to asking what I could make possible. Instead of seeking another mountain to climb myself, I began looking for others who were capable of climbing mountains I had never imagined. My role evolved from performer to catalyst. This led me to surround myself with people who possessed the same obsessive dedication that had driven my own success, but in different fields and with different visions. I discovered that the most exciting projects were not the ones I could easily complete, but the ones that seemed almost impossible, even with my resources and experience. Here's what changed everything. When you stop trying to be the hero of every story and start enabling others to become heroes of their own stories, your impact multiplies exponentially. The leader who builds other leaders creates influence that continues long after they're gone. The practical approach is this: identify people around you who have unrealized potential and help them access resources, knowledge, or opportunities they couldn't reach alone. Look for projects that seem just beyond what's currently possible and create teams capable of making them reality. Your experience has value not just as personal achievement, but as a platform for launching others toward their own achievements. The obstacles you've overcome have taught you lessons that could save others years of struggle if properly shared. The greatest leaders throughout history are remembered not for what they accomplished personally, but for what they made possible for their people. They understood that true power comes from multiplication, not accumulation. Curiosity becomes your new competitive advantage. When you approach challenges with the excitement of discovery rather than the weight of obligation, you attract others who share that sense of adventure. Together, you can attempt things that would be impossible alone. Therefore, I declare to you, let your success become a launching pad for others rather than a monument to yourself. For the leader who lifts others creates a legacy that grows with time, but the leader who seeks only personal glory builds monuments that crumble with their passing. Number 11, facing serious injury. You've been knocked down hard. Maybe it's a health crisis, a financial disaster, a relationship that imploded, or a career that suddenly ended. You're facing the possibility that the life you built might be over. Fear whispers that this setback will define your story, and you're struggling to find the strength to believe in your future again. I am Solomon, and I faced this truth when my body betrayed me at the moment of my greatest triumph. Life will test your character not through your victories, but through your responses to unexpected devastation. The wise understand that how you handle your lowest moments determines whether they become your ending or your beginning. Picture a mighty oak tree that has weathered countless storms, its roots deep and its branches strong. Then comes a lightning strike that splits its trunk and seems to threaten its very existence. But deep in its core, life still flows. The tree faces a choice: surrender to the damage or find a way to grow around the wound. The most magnificent trees are often those that bear the scars of their greatest battles. The moment came without warning. In the midst of what should have been a celebration of everything I had worked toward, my body failed catastrophically. Pain exploded through me with such intensity that it drove me to the ground. In that instant, I felt not just physical agony, but the crushing weight of uncertainty about everything I had built. My first instinct was to hide the severity of the situation, to pretend the injury was minor, to maintain the image of invincibility that leadership sometimes demands. But as I lay there, I realized that this moment would define not just my future, but the lesson I would leave for those who looked up to me. The breakthrough came when I understood that my children and my people were watching not just my success, but my response to crisis. They needed to see that a strong person doesn't avoid pain, but faces it with dignity. They needed to witness that setbacks don't destroy character, but reveal it. Here's the mindset that transforms everything. Your response to catastrophe teaches others more about strength than your achievements ever could. When you handle devastating setbacks with courage and wisdom, you give permission to everyone around you to believe they can survive their own worst moments. I made the decision that the injury would not write the final chapter of my story. Yes, it would change my path. Yes, it would require adaptations I hadn't planned, but it would not be the reason I gave up on the purposes that had driven me this far. The practical truth is this. When life delivers a crushing blow, your first job is not to fix everything immediately, but to maintain your dignity while you assess the damage. Handle the crisis with as much grace as you can manage. Show those who depend on you that strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the presence of courage in the face of vulnerability. Understand that some of your greatest contributions to the world may come from how you navigate your darkest hours. The people who witness your recovery will be inspired to attempt their own recoveries. Your comeback becomes proof that comebacks are possible. Do not let the injury, whatever form it takes, rob you of the opportunity to finish your story on your own terms. The most powerful narratives are often those that include a chapter where everything seemed lost, but the hero found a way to continue writing. Therefore, I say to you, let your scars become your credentials for helping others heal. For the man who overcomes great adversity earns the right to speak about resilience, but the man who surrenders to his first great setback will never discover the strength that was waiting to emerge from his greatest trial. You stand now at the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. The words you have heard are not merely concepts to understand, but fire to kindle the dormant greatness within your soul. Every champion who ever lived faced this same moment of decision, this same crossroads where comfort beckons backward and destiny calls forward. Picture a seed buried deep in fertile ground. In the darkness, it cannot see the sun it will one day reach toward, yet something within its nature compels it to break through the soil that surrounds it. The earth that once protected it must now be pushed aside for growth to continue. This is your moment of breaking through. The path of the winner is not a destination you arrive at, but a way of being you step into with each decision. Right now, as you absorb these truths, your mind is being rewired for excellence. Your standards are rising. Your tolerance for mediocrity is shrinking. The person you were yesterday cannot contain the vision you carry today. If these words have awakened something powerful within you, if you feel the stirring of your authentic strength, then this conversation must continue. Subscribe now, not as an end to this moment, but as the beginning of your transformation. Join this council of those who refuse to settle, who choose growth over comfort, who understand that their lives are meant to be testimonies of what becomes possible when ordinary people make extraordinary commitments. The winner inside you has been waiting for this moment of recognition. What happens next depends entirely on whether you choose to honor that calling or return to the slumber of the average. Your greatness is not a question. Your willingness to claim it is the only variable that remains.